When you think of Spider-Man, what do you think of? Me, I think of web swinging, wall crawling, impressive feats of kickassery, and killing your wife with your radioactive sperm. Wait, what? If that last part confused you, you were probably one of the ones fortunate enough to not stumble across Spider-Man Reign. You count your lucky stars and then sit back because it's about to get all Dark Knight Returns up in here. If The Dark Knight Returns was a horrible, disgusting piece of filth, that is. So the comic opens up with a disembodied voice narrating the old nursery rhyme, The Itsy Bitsy Spider. Oh, look, a bleak landscape with washed-out colors and an ominous opening. I am so shocked by the originality and risk the writers took. What will happen next? More ominous narrative talking about how nursery rhymes are evil for no reason? Okay, comic. Let's have a chat. First off, nursery rhymes that are related to the character you're writing about are not a good way to start a serious comic. Nursery rhymes are for children. You, comic, are not. You are a heap of shit that I would never allow near any child, let alone one in grade school. Second, if I can pick apart an element this intensely in the first few pages, you're doing something wrong, and it won't get better. Probably. A few pages later, the plot becomes clear. An aged Peter Parker, now reduced to a flower shop worker who is about to get laid off, is struggling to get by in life. Because, a person who can make their own web shooter is obviously only qualified to work in a flower shop. I mean, what else could they do in life? After a particularly dickish customer costs Peter his job, we see our now decrepit hero walking home in the rain. Ooh, wet old people. So edgy. He runs into a group of law enforcement called Rain, and a snarky kid gets pummeled and taken away. Peter is asked by a little boy-girl thing why he didn't save that boy. Oh, I don't know. Maybe because he's old and weak? I mean, it's not like he's Spider-Man or anything. Jeez. After that, the comic establishes the premise of a force field being put up around the city called the Web. Boy, the desperate attempts to stay close to Spider-Man just keep coming, don't they? Then, after a particular creepy scene of the mayor talking to a rotting body, we see Peter talking to Mary Jane, who surprisingly looks rather young. Enjoy the clever foreshadowing while it lasts, comic. It's about the only thing you did right. Then, through the work of an unloving god, I'm sure, a still-alive J. Jonah Jameson appears at the door to Peter's apartment. He has a package under his arm, and he says Candygram. Peter invites him in, they sit down and talk like old men, and then they both pass away peacefully, and our story ends. I wish. The package Jameson has is actually a mask. Not a crappy Walmart mask, no, but Spider-Man's mask. And I bet the artists were trying so hard to resist slapping a store-brand name on it and laughing their ass off. It came wrapped around a camera, so it's assumed that Jameson knows Peter's secret. Oh boy. Old men and their senility. Silly Jameson. Peter isn't Spider-Man. He's too old to be Spider-Man. Let's get you back in your straitjacket, okay? After trying to get Peter to join Jameson's cause, Peter breaks down and sulks. Jameson is met by the Rain outside, in two ways I might add, and he is trying to fight them off in the way any old person would, flailing around like an idiot and trying to hit them with whatever you have in your hand at the time. Are guns just not carried by law enforcement now? Peter puts on the Spider-Man mask after much deliberation, i.e. sitting around on his wrinkly ass wondering whether he should help someone who ruined so much of his superhero career, and kicks the Rain's ass. The people, not the water. After a pretty schizophrenic moment where Peter hears the mask laughing, Jameson thanks Peter for saving him. Oh, and he also flashes back to his heyday where he recollects the time he couldn't save anyone, so pretty much his life flashed before his eyes. He then punches Jameson right in the face and storms off, ending the first issue. The next few issues mainly deal with Spider-Man coming back to his senses, a final encounter with the Sinister Six and Venom, and of course, the whole realization that Spider-Man's sperm is cancerous and killed Mary Jane. I won't go into depths on those because the review would go on forever. Let me just briefly go over the radioactive semen bit. Remember how Peter got his powers? Remember how the Hulk came into existence? Think of the Fantastic Four for a second. Radiation is pretty much magic in the Marvel Universe. It helps more often than it hurts, and the most I can see the radioactive semen doing is either giving Mary Jane powers or her having superpowered children. If it didn't kill Peter, why should it kill her? After all, he got the most of it, and I can't imagine his bodily fluids holding any more radioactivity than other parts of him. It's a stupid idea, but hey, it's a comic. But what do I think of the comic as a whole? I'd be lying if I said it was good. While the comic does have its merits, the whole thing just fell apart. They tried to put a hero that built his entire superhero career on death and guilt into something darker. While that idea sounds good in theory, it really doesn't pan out. Peter had already coped with his uncle's death, and he was doing what he was doing now because it's more of an obligation than a redemption. Once he established himself, he can't disappear. When you use a storyline this dark, you have to take into account the character you're writing it for. If you feel the character is too bright for this, then you probably shouldn't do it. That said, the few things the comic did well were really clever and did made you think. But in this case, the cons outweigh the pros. Sorry, but this run wasn't as good as it could have been, if at all. I'd give it a 1 out of 5. I know whoever's watching this is probably waiting for the next part of the new Avengers Illuminati dub to come out, and it will. I'm doing this to keep you guys interested in between episodes and for something to do myself. Next time on Will Review for Food, I'll tackle Batman the Killing Joke. I won't always be doing bad comics, so keep an eye out. And this is Copper, closing the book.